Greetings from Act Now. Here we continue with David's training. He has let us know in the previous video that his week of transition, his self-initiation, let's say, ritual or transition work as prescribed and as he was already in the process of doing when it was prescribed by me for him to do, that is done. Therefore, he has already made his decision now, his final decision, to take up with this training. Okay? So all the preparation leading up to that decision is done. So is his decision. It is done. And his preparation, his transition from before to now. This turning point in his life, the transition, is done. He has said, it is done now. So, we continue. My response back to him. It interests me that you were already rearranging furniture with the intent to bring in new life, and that you became a non-smoker. That is splendid. Congratulations. It's no easy thing to do. It is also quite outstanding that severing the tie with your girlfriend came to your mind upon reading my instruction to instrument a relevantly constructive initiation ritual. I feel sad on your behalf and on hers as well. On the other hand, if I give this instruction to somebody and he comes up with something that has no real turning point impact in his life, I wonder about his earnestness here. Well, I do not wonder about yours. Now, if you get any urges to smoke, intentionally use them as opportunities to strengthen your use of willpower. You can make this your #1 reason for not smoking in the face of an urge to do otherwise. Instead of using willpower to not smoke, what I'm saying is you can use not smoking to enhance your use of willpower. See, here I can picture somebody walking around with such desire to cultivate will that he hopes to God that smoking urges plague him all day, just so that he can refuse to smoke due to the involved empowerment of will. Now, you know the general rule, you know the general instructions, and the general fact. I have said less about the general fact than I have about the others. So right now, I'm going to say something more about the general fact, that everything is conscious substance in motion, that everything is alive. Take, for example, what I was just saying about will and the smoking. We could consider that the act of smoking, the power of will, urges to smoke, the desire to cultivate will, intentional use of urges as opportunities, and so on. All are living things, interacting with one another. And we would be correct at one level of discourse or another. And in our consideration here, we are referring to the levels of discourse at which our assertions are in fact true. For example, an urge to smoke is not a physically living thing. But it is, in fact, an ethereally and astrally living thing with living mental plane components as well. Learning to perceive affairs in this manner, and to just plain old be in affairs in this manner, is sane. It stands in correspondence with the facts of the case. And it makes everything so much more alive. And importantly for us here, it makes our work easier. Why? Well, because we can use this perspective as a part of many of our techniques that build into an evolved way of being. And we can use this perspective in this manner and safely get efficient results because this perspective corresponds with reality. Now, put that idea aside for a moment, but not out of sight. You also know the instruction to not strain with any of this training. And the other one, to trust your subconscious mind to do work for you. Perhaps by now you have some gelling understanding of how these three general things, plus these latter two instructions, the not straining and the subconscious mind trust, all five work together. Good enough. Now put that understanding aside for a moment too, but not out of sight. You also have awareness of the importance of understanding exactly why you are taking up with personal evolution training. Plus, you have awareness of the clever ways that identification with false ego manifests a phalanx of barriers to bona fide personal evolution. Add to these a new idea. That idea being that we can transmute our motives for such training into their highest form, a form which surpasses false ego, and then engrave them onto our will itself, and then apply that motive engraved will to all of our training, such that if done properly, our consequent way of being will involve persistent thought, feeling, emotion, and action, all rooted in our core desires and uses of will to inherently perpetuate our own continued evolvement. A loaded statement, a mouthful, I know. Over that paragraph, do not strain. Apply what you know to do. Instead, go back over it one or two more times, slowly giving each word its fully due attention. Do it, and feel the meanings of the words to the point of feeling that energy changes inside you that they create when considered that strongly and attentively. Do this if for no other reason than to use the doing of it as an attention training tool, and you will thereby be applying the general instruction, but which should always be applied. And then trust your subconscious mind to take it from there. That's all. Now, yes, I am going somewhere with all of this, as follows. We are going to take what you wrote in your notebook, your answer to those three questions, and use that as a starting point to do what I said in that paragraph that I just now had you review a couple of times. The process will take a few weeks. How many exactly depends on you, and whether we want to call this essentially a motive-oriented task, or an attention training task, or an alchemical mental transmutation task, or something else along these lines. It doesn't matter. All such things do come into the picture. But it can feel boring. I assure you it can. But I do not guarantee that it will. It has for some other people. Me, I think it feels exciting. I still have the outer results of me having done it years ago, within 2 feet of me right now. It's all right here. Anyway. Moving on. One thing for sure about this next few weeks, you will affect at least 2 things simultaneously. One is an outer representation, and the other is inner work. The outer is done by hand on paper, and the inner is done mentally. The outer will evolve in form. The inner will evolve in depth and meaning. Both are alive and interact with one another. And you must apply the general fact in your thinking accordingly. The general fact that all is alive. Everything is alive. All is conscious substance in motion. Another thing that will certainly occur. Once the outer representation and the inner work are maxed out, so to speak, the last step is to then engrave the result onto your will, as I have indicated, and seal it into place. I call this latter thing the hermetic seal. Then we go from there, using your results as the starting point for all further training every day. Eventually, you will understand that your training motives, which are now integral with your will to act, are also your life motives, and that your training is becoming your way of life. At this point, then you start to really have knowledge of how this all comes together, and how it does so in connection with universal laws and mental principles of operation. You will adopt an occult-like perspective on all things, and act accordingly. And right now, I ask you to feel that this whole process, David, is alive. For the next week or so, closely examine what you wrote in answer to the 3 questions. You stated a duty to universal will at one point. Without me going back and looking, as I recall, your statement had a compound structure, perhaps involving more than one verb. Had to do with manifesting, realizing, and accepting, I believe, your true self. Now, I'm not sure. Regardless, though, your first assignment with this, that you wrote down, is called delineation. Delineation is one of various steps, all designed to refine your initial statement. The initial statement that you wrote down, that I asked you to write down and that you said you wrote down. Purification is a part of refinement. And for purification, you must first clarify. And for crystal clarification, you must break a thing into its component parts. So, from here on until we get to the last step, perhaps some weeks from now, no more pen. Pencil only. And for right now, you can scribble, jot, right upside down, backwards, I do not care. Your form and style are not the point right now. The important part is you are using a pencil. Again, no ink and no keyboarding. A pencil and paper or other surface to delineate your current statement into as many component parts as you can. Now, I know that your current statement has already gone through your own refining process. You made that clear, and it's obvious. We could even leave it as is in that regard, but there are multiple purposes for going through this several-week process. Ending up with a statement like what you already have is only one of them. Besides, no doubt exists in my mind that after we do this transmuting procedure, your end result will not be the same as what you have on paper right now. It will have evolved into something more than what it is now. Let me repeat that. This is an important concept. It applies to more than just what we're talking about. It will have evolved into something more than what it is now. Rest assured, nothing will have got lost or diminished. Plus, it is not what is on the paper that is the most important thing right now. It is what the words represent. It is what you feel. It is your experience. It is your life. The life of the words is part of your life. The words are symbolic forms. You ensoul them. They move inside you. This is our thinking here. You must go through the changes with the words. So do not worry over whether your current statement is already the best it can be. No strain over such things at all. Just apply the general rule. Follow all the instruction to the letter. So, were I to have written, I would like to learn to ride a bike, and somebody told me to delineate my statement, I could end up with something like, I want to do the following. I want to learn bicycle safety, build up my muscular system for riding endurance, be able to ride in a perfectly straight line in heavy traffic, ride using no hands, learn to ride street and track racing bicycles alike, make a living by bicycle riding, and so on. Do you now understand what I mean by delineation? Take this as far as you can. You might end up with 3 statements, or 6, or 10, or more. I don't know. I can't tell you how many are enough, either. Or how far delineated is delineated enough. This truly is yours, not mine. Go as far as you can with it. But if it starts to look like something totally foreign from its starting point, then I think that perhaps you could consider that you're starting to go too far. Then again, you might discover new things during just this one first assignment. Things that fit. I don't know. I can tell you this though. Your starting point with this here already is rock solid. Just break the rock into whatever pieces it breaks into. No strain. And one last note for now. I mentioned your earnestness at the beginning here. Carry that right into and through this. For your earnestness with all of this training will determine the extent of its results. Your motives will determine their character. So throw all of your earnestness right into this and never stop. Any questions? Just write. In fact, let me know that you got this instruction and whether it makes initial sense to you. Okay? I do not want you to flounder over anything I've written here. I do not do much rereading of my emails before I send them. It takes long enough to just plunk them out in the first place, so let me know. For we are in the mix now. Be well. Okay. And then, I received a reply from David. It was this. I recorded your email. No, none of this sounds boring in the least. Providing I'm understanding correctly, this looks to be an exciting start. Please correct me if my understanding is wrong, but I wanted to comment on 2 points. First, the thought that we are able to inject motive into our will. So whenever the will is used for anything at all, our motives are strengthened by such use, and then also realized at each turn. If I'm correct, that's some powerful stuff. In a sense, we can set our own evolution into autopilot then. Create strong intentions and set them in motion. For the most part, then they will come tell themselves about themselves and perpetuate themselves with added and extra work from ourselves. Just like turning the key on an engine, the energy we personally put in was just a twist of the wrist, but the metal on wheels can go 150 miles an hour. This is interesting material here. This is an interesting way to proceed. And the second thing I wanted to point out is delineation of my initial statement that I put in my notebook. It appears as if it is a very important process. It's not enough to say I want to be a great fisherman. What type of fisherman? Do I want to use a boat or stand on the beach? Will I use red lures or blue ones? Will I catch bass or flounder? In the end, I can come back and say that I want to be a great fisherman, but only once I truly understand all that that means to me. With my personal answer to the 3 questions, I see how my starting foundation is solid, but a gust of wind can still blow down the house. It must be refined and refined and refined. Refined some more, so that when the big bad wolf shows up, he can huff and puff all he wants and it'll make no difference. I see. If for no other reason, I need clarification for myself. If for no other reason, such as the purification you referred to, and the transmutation you referred to, the engraving on my will that you referred to, the hermetic sealing into my will that you referred to, and then the using of that motive engraved will in all the rest of my training, which fits into all the rest of my life. If for no other reason than just for the clarification for myself, I need that. I have a general idea of where I want to go, but through a refining process I can pinpoint my destination. If I am accurate in both of these things, my personal development can go much, much further than I had originally thought possible. Please confirm if what I gathered on my first read through here is accurate. I will be reading it over again with more focus. I reply, David, you have hit the proverbial nail on its head. We will continue in the next video.